been in the rice aisle at the grocery store lately, then you probably know that one pantry staple has become a lot harder to get in the last week. And that's because India, one of the world's largest producers of rice, has banned exports of certain types. And it's causing anxiety for shoppers around the world.
India is halting the export of roughly half of its foreign rice shipments, and that has led to panic buying at Canadian grocery stores.
It's the quest for rice. This after people wiped the shelves of Indian non-basmati white rice.
I mean, they really wanted to purchase 10, 12, 15 bags.
And stood in line for hours over the weekend.
Yeah, non-basmati white rice won't be coming from India for the foreseeable. So we're talking about small and medium grain white basmati rice. And there are actually several types of basmati. Those other varieties, they aren't affected by the ban. And there aren't any restrictions on parboiled rice, which is another major export. And because of the shortage, stores that cater to South Asian communities have adjusted their prices and even implemented caps on the amount of rice that customers can buy.
Because of the ban, now I'm not going to be able to get my hands on it, I guess. Yeah, so I guess I'll stock up a bit.
My kids were so upset that what if we don't get any rice when we come back?
Is that rice is a daily product for everybody. It's a staple diet. So most of them, they thought, okay, they will not have rice for a long time. So they started coming in here and they wanted to buy more and more.
So why did India ban the export of some types of rice, and how is it hitting home? India itself has a shortage of rice, and that limit on exports is a way to keep domestic prices from going up.
Rice prices in India have increased by 11% over the past year and 3% over the past month. So for governments like India and many other governments, social harmony is critical.
According to India's government data, the price of non-basmati rice in the country has been going up pretty steadily. In September of last year, 1 metric ton of non-basmati rice in India cost about $330 US. But today, it's more than $450, an increase of 36%. The Ministry of Consumer Affairs said the ban would help ensure adequate availability of the rice in India and stall the rise in prices in the country. The rising cost of living has put political pressure on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government ahead of national elections next year.
The surge in food prices in the last few months, and in particular rice, which has gone up 12%, has put inflationary pressure on household incomes. The government under a lot of criticism for this and is trying to control it by bringing on this ban.
Limiting rice exports has a big impact around the world, and experts are warning the global market could face its biggest shortage in decades. So just to give you a sense of how much rice India actually exports, let's use this bowl. So let's say this is India's exports normally, okay? 40% of global supply. Almost half of the entire world's rice comes from India. But after the ban, this is what's left. Its exports cut in half. And that's not a lot to go around.
So we need to watch this carefully. We need to be attuned to the potential of these very poor countries who have a significant risk of famine, that they can get rice from other sources.
India is the world's leading rice exporter. Last year, the country shipped 22 metric tons to more than 140 countries. Around half of those shipments were of non-basmati rice. And that kind of rice is mainly exported to countries in Asia and Africa. And the International Monetary Fund says they're worried the ban could make food insecurity worse in those regions.
In the current environment, these types of restrictions are likely to exacerbate volatility on food prices in the rest of the world, and they can also lead to retaliatory measures. So they are certainly something that we would encourage the removal of these type of export restrictions, because they can be harmful globally.
Rice production is falling worldwide and driving up prices for more than 3.5 billion people across the globe. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First, there's a short supply of rice as a result of the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Russia says an agreement allowing Ukraine to ship out grain through the Black Sea has now ended.
India's export ban came just days after Russia terminated a key deal that allowed the safe passage of Ukrainian food grains through the Black Sea. And that's expected to have a detrimental impact on food security around the world. because Ukraine is an important global supplier of wheat, corn, and sunflower oil.
Russia blocking exports from the Ukraine. All of these things come together, and I often call this the cascading consequences of system failures. So if something else comes to bring a shock into the supply chain, then of course the ripple effect of that could be significant.
Another reason why we're seeing a global shortage of rice: bad weather in rice-producing regions led to a drop in rice production last year. Heavy rain in northern parts of India damaged crops. Rice paddy fields were submerged for weeks. It destroyed newly planted seedlings and forced farmers to wait for waters to recede so they could replant. And that led to a sharp rise in prices at grocery stores. And all of this is bad news, but especially so because rice serves as a vital staple for around half of the global population. Asia alone accounts for around 90% of the world's consumption.
Rice is eaten by about half of the world's population. As a global staple food, keeping its price low means less people in the world go to bed hungry.
India's rice ban comes at a time of intense global food insecurity. Some say it could mark the beginning of a dark chapter. And a lot of that has to do with climate change and El Nino.
Scientists officially confirmed that an El Nino weather event has begun.
Weather-related climate change, the El Nino, they're all factors that are playing into this. Like India has some difficulty right now in managing production across different crops, including rice. And of course, farmers will struggle if they can't get their products out and get them to the market.
For a closer look at how this throws the market off kilter and long-term consequences, I'm going to head back to the studio to talk to Sophia Murphy, Executive Director of the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy.
The ban really destabilizes the trade system. So a lot of countries, in fact, most countries import some of their food. Even Canada, a huge food exporter, also imports a lot of food. And as you go through countries, the poorer they are, the more they tend to import these staple foods like rice. So in India, the largest rice exporter in the world decides to ban a large share of that export. It just creates a lot of instability as the market tries to understand, okay, where else might supply come from? What will the price rise to in order to accommodate the new shortage of supply? And so it adds uncertainty, adds a lot of cost, and it takes away one of the mechanisms we've created to help stabilize food supplies, which is international trade.
Right. Okay. And so who's really impacted here when this happens?
So the initial big markets, Philippines, Indonesia, those are countries where there is quite a bit of domestic rice. They do depend on rice imports, a lot of it coming from India. They will pay more for what they get, and poor people within those countries will find it harder to eat. But then there are a whole lot of poorer countries. A lot of West Africa, for example, now are big rice importers, and they will struggle, at the national level to pay for higher priced rice and to find new suppliers as well. Because trade is about relationships. It's not easy to jump from one supplier to another. That takes time and effort, and as they say, you need to build a relationship. So the most affected will be people who are hungry. That will be where it hits hard. And then there'll be big rice consuming countries where, it won't affect Canada very much, especially because basmati rice, the more high value rice, has not been included in the ban. And often richer countries eat that more choice product rather than the broken rice that India is controlling.
And the longer that this goes on, how do those consequences continue to play out?
Well, I think, and it's happened before, it clearly will reduce confidence in the international market. So you'll see countries looking for other solutions than relying on imports. If the big exporters stop exporting without much notice and abruptly cut off supply. And it'll point, I hope, towards thinking about how to diversify the food sources, not just rice from other countries, but maybe other foods as well. We know from a nutritional point of view that a lot of our staple calories don't give us all the nutrition we need. And I think it'll, I hope, encourage countries to invest in their local and regional food systems, both as a way to diversify, but also to have a food supply that they have more control over, because it's a reminder that the Indian government ultimately can decide where the rice will go, and its obligations to other countries rank lower than its sense of the politics that are playing out right now at home.
I mean, politically, is there going to be plays happening to get in on that trade from other countries?
Oh, absolutely. Other big exporters, Vietnam, Thailand, as long as they have supply. Ironically, India has enormous supplies. It's hard to see economically why a ban makes sense. They clearly want to keep the pressure of inflation down, and they have very, very large population that is food insecure within India. But there isn't actually a scarcity of the supply at this point. But other countries who export will try and move in. And other countries that import will be looking elsewhere and maybe thinking about what else they can get. The poorer they are, the more this food plays into their, basic food security. They're going to be thinking about what else. Maybe it's wheat, maybe it's another crop, or if they can get rice from a different country.
Wow, so there are just no easy fixes here. Sophia Murphy, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.